Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Monday, November 29th, 2021. Hopefully everybody had a fabulous Thanksgiving. We're back and ready to rock and roll. Today we're going to recap everything from the weekend, from the NFL to college football to the NBA to the NHL to college basketball, and we'll look ahead to everything going on tonight. MLS playoffs as well, news and notes, and my best bet of the day. We're going to start the NFL. Some interesting results for sure. Some of them I nailed right on the head on this very podcast, and others I had smoke blown up my butt because I was so very wrong. So without further ado, here we go. We'll start with Thanksgiving. Bears over the Lions 16-14. Raiders over the Cowboys 36-33 in overtime. Bills over the Saints 31-6. So two classic games on Thanksgiving and then one dud. Sunday, Giants over the Eagles 13-7. Bengals over the Steelers 41-10. Bucks over the Colts 38-31. Dolphins over the Panthers 33-10. Pats over the Titans 36-13. Falcons over the Jaguars 21-14. Jets over the Texans 21-14. Broncos over the Chargers 28-13. Packers over the Rams 36-28. The 49ers over the Vikings 34-26. And the Ravens over the Browns 16-10. And one game tonight, ESPN, 8:15, Steve Levy, Brian Grease, and Louis Riddick on the call. The Seahawks at the Washington Professional Football Team. My projection for this game is Seattle by 2, total 44-1. Meanwhile, FanDuel has this at Seattle by 1, total 46.5. My pick for this game is going to be the under. I think that's a low-scoring game. I think that the football team's defense will, Chase Young will get some stops a little bit, and I think that Russell Wilson, I think 46.5 is high. That's just reality of the situation. Like, the Seahawks offense, even with Wilson back, isn't that very good. And Seattle's defense is horrible from a yard standpoint, but it's still Taylor Heinicke we're talking about, guys. This isn't Ryan Fitzpatrick. This is Taylor Heinicke. Don't forget that, guys. So, give me the under 46.5 at minus 105, and I think the Seahawks will win the game, and it will be close. All right, now we'll talk about college football from the weekend. Boy, there's a lot of coaching news we have to get into for college football, but we'll save that for news and notes. That's what the priority of news and notes will be today, by the way. So, college football from the weekend. So we'll start with Thanksgiving. Fresno State over San Jose State 40-9. Number 9 Ole Miss over Mississippi State 31-21. Friday, number 21 San Diego State over Boise State 27-16. Texas over Kansas State 22-17. Central Michigan over Eastern Michigan 31-10. Bowling Green over Ohio 21-10. Utah State over New Mexico 35-10. Number 16, Iowa over Nebraska, 28-21. UAB over Utah, 42-35. Number 25, Arkansas over Missouri, 34-17. UCF over South Florida, 17-13. Coastal Carolina over South Alabama, 27-21 in overtime. Air Force over UNLV, 48-14. Number 4, Cincinnati over East Carolina, 35-13. Number 19, Utah over Colorado, 28-13. Iowa State over TCU, 48-14. Number 20, NC State over North Carolina, 34-30. And Washington State over Wazoo, 40-13. Or Washington, not Wazoo. Wazoo's Washington State. Oops. And then Saturday's results. Number 1, Georgia over Georgia Tech, 45-zip. How about this, guys? Number 2, Michigan over, or number 5, Michigan over number 2, Ohio State, 42-27. Talk about that. Jim Harbaugh finally beats Ohio State. Number 8, Baylor over Texas Tech, 27-24. Number 18, Wake over BC, 41-10. Number 24, Houston over UConn, 45-17. Florida over Florida State, 24-21. Maryland over Rutgers, 40-16. Army over Liberty, 31-16. Navy over Temple, 38-14. Kent State over Miami of Ohio, 48-47 in overtime. Toledo over Akron, 49-14. Miami over Duke, 47-10. Rice over La Tech, 35-31. North Texas over number 22 UTSA, 45-23, so the winning streak for UTSA comes to an end. Old Dominion over Charlotte, 56-34. Texas State over Arkansas State, 24-22. Georgia State over Troy, 37-10. App State over Georgia Southern, 27-3. Southern Miss over FIU, 37-17. Mexico State over UMass 44-27. Hawaii over Wyoming 38-14. Number 3, Alabama over Auburn 24-22 in quadruple overtime. What a classic of an Iron Bowl game. Number 11, Oregon over Oregon State 38-29. Number 12, Michigan State over Penn State 30-27. Western Kentucky over Marshall 53-21. Illinois over Northwestern 47-14. Purdue over Indiana 44-7. Tennessee over Vandy 45-21. Virginia Tech over Virginia 29-24. Minnesota over number 14, Wisconsin 23-13. Tulsa over SMU 34-31. Louisiana over UL Monroe 21-16. Arizona State over Arizona 38-15. LSU over number 15, Texas A&M 27-24. Middle Tennessee over FAU 27-17. West Virginia over Kansas 34-28. Number 7, Oklahoma State over number 10, Oklahoma 37-33. Number 17, Pitt over Syracuse 31-14. Number 23, Clemson over South Carolina 30-zip. Kentucky over Louisville 52-21. Memphis over Tulane 33-28. Number 6, Notre Dame over Stanford 45-14. Nevada over Colorado State 52-10. Number 13, BYU over USC 35-31. And UCLA over Cal 42-14. So that's it for college football for the weekend. Now we'll move on to the NBA. We'll recap everything from scores and stuff from the weekend and look ahead to a busy window of games for tonight. So we'll start with Wednesday night. Suns over the Cavs 120-115. Lakers over the Pacers 124-116 in overtime. Hornets over the Magic 106-99. Nets over the Celtics 123-104. Rockets over the Bulls 118-113. Raptors over the Grizzlies 126-113. Bucks over the Pistons 114-93. Timberwolves over the Heat 113-101. Pelicans over the Wizards 127-102. Jazz over the Thunder 110-104. Hawks over the Spurs 124-106. Warriors over the Sixers 116-96. Kings over the Trailblazers 125-121. Friday, Suns over the Knicks 118-97. Clips over the Pistons 107-96. Hornets over the Wolves 133-115. Bulls over the Magic 123-88. Pacers over the Raptors 114-97. Hawks over the Grizzlies 132-100. Wizards over the Thunder 101-99. Spurs over the Celtics 96-88. Bucks over the Nuggets 120-109. Pelicans over the Jazz 98-97. Warriors over the Trailblazers 118-103. Kings over the Lakers 141-147 in triple overtime. Saturday, Timberwolves over the 76ers 121-120 in double overtime. Suns over the Nets 113-107. Knicks over the Hawks 99-90. Cavs over the Magic 105-92. Heat over the Bulls 107-104. Rockets over the Hornets 146-143 in overtime. Mavericks lose to the Wizards 120-114. And the Jazz over the Pelicans 127-105. Sunday, Warriors over the Clippers 105-90. Bucks over the Pacers 118-100. Celtics over the Raptors 109-97. Grizzlies over the Kings 128-101. And the Lakers over the Pistons 110-106. All right, now we look ahead to tonight's games. A busy window. I apologize, I just didn't do totals. I just did sides today. 7 o'clock, you have the Magic at the Sixers. My projection is the Sixers by 16.5. And it is 15 and 208.5. I'm going to take the under here. I think this is a low-scoring defensive game and defensive effort by Joel Embiid and the Sixers. The Nuggets and the Heat at 7:30 on NBA TV. My projection is the Heat by 10.5, and it's 7.5 totals to a 7.5. I'm taking the Heat in the 7.5. The Hornets and the Bulls from United Center at 8 o'clock. My projection is Bulls by 4. And actually, no, 3.5. I missed a player injury. In this game. So Bulls by 3.5, and it's 5.5 total, 225.5. I'm going to take Charlotte in the 5.5. Charlotte, it's been a little bit of a wild card, but they've been in so many close games. The Thunder and the Rockets from Houston. My projection is the Thunder by 2.5, and it is the Rockets by 2.5 total, 215.5. No Jalen Green. I'm taking the Thunder plus the 2.5 and plus 118 straight up. The Pacers and the Timberwolves from Minnesota. My projection is the Timberwolves by 2.5, and it's 3.5 total, 216.5. I'm going to take the over. I think this is a high-scoring game. 8:30, the Cavaliers and the Mavericks. My projection is Dallas by 9 3/4. And it is 5.5 and 208. I'm laying the 5.5 with the Mavericks. That's very low. The Wizards and the Spurs. My projection is the Wizards by 5.5. And it's 3.5 and 214.5. I'm going to lay the 3.5 with Washington. 9 o'clock, the Blazers and the Jazz. My projection is the Jazz by 10 1/4. And it's 7 and 223.5. I'm going to lay the points with the Jazz. And the Pelicans and the Clippers at 10:30. My projection is the Clippers by 16 1/4 without Zion still. And it's 8. Oh my God, I love the Clippers. That is so low. I know the Pelicans are playing better. Zion's not back yet. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I cannot do it. The line would be, if Zion was back, it would have been for me about 9 3/4. Even with Zion, I would project the Clippers as a bigger favorite at that. So I'm laying the 8 with the Clippers against the Pelicans. All right, now we move on to the NHL from the weekend, as we will recap those games and look ahead to a smaller window for tonight. So we'll begin with Wednesday night. Rangers over the Islanders 4-1. Bruins over the Sabres 5-1. Panthers over the Flyers 2-1 in OT. Pens over the Canucks 4-1. Caps over the Canadiens 6-3. Jackets over the Jets 3-0. Red Wings over the Blues 4-2. Wild over the Devils 3-2 in a shootout. Golden Knights over the Preds 5-2. Avs over the Ducks 5-2. Oilers over the Coyotes 5-3. Leafs over the Kings 6-2. Kraken over the Hurricanes 2-1. And the Sharks over the Sens 6-3. Friday, Rangers over the Bruins 5-2 on the Thanksgiving Showdown on ABC. Canes over the Flyers 6-3. Blackhawks over the Blues 3-2 in overtime. Wild over the Jets 7-1. Ducks over the Sens 4-0. Caps over the Panthers 4-3. Preds over the Devils 4-2. Sabres over the Habs 4-1. Lightning over the Kraken 3-0. Blue Jackets over the Canucks 4-2. Pens over the Isles 1-0. Stars over the Avs 3-1. Maple Leafs over the Sharks 4-1. Saturday, Kraken over the Panthers 4-1. Red Wings over the Sabres 3-2 in overtime. Habs over the Penguins 6-3. Oilers over the Golden Knights 3-2. Kings over the Senators 4-2. Blues over the Blue Jackets 6-3. Stars over the Coyotes 3-2. Abs over the Preds 6-2. And the Jets over the Flames 4-2. Sunday, Capitals over the Hurricanes 4-2. Wild over the Lightning 4-2. Bruins over the Canucks 3-2. Devils over the Flyers 5-2. Sharks over the Blackhawks 2-0. Maple Leafs over the Ducks 5-1. Isles Rangers postponed due to Isles COVID issues. Only 4 games tonight. 7 o'clock, you have the Kraken and the Sabres from Buffalo. The Kraken are minus 146. The Sabres are plus 122. Over under 5.5. Over is plus 106. Under is minus 130. Kraken minus 1.5 is plus 190. Buffalo plus 1.5 is minus 240. The Sabres are a team that kind of fallen off a little bit. And the Kraken have been very inconsistent. So what I'm going to do for this game is that I'm going to take the draw at plus 310. 7:30, the Coyotes and the Jets. The Jets are minus 360. The Coyotes are plus 280. Over under 5.5. Over is minus 120. Under is minus 102. Coyotes plus 1.5 is plus 106. Jets minus 1.5 is minus 130. I'm going to go with the over 5.5. The juice number at minus 120. The Canucks and the Canadiens. Montreal minus 137. Vancouver plus 114. Over under 5.5. Over is minus 112. Under is minus 108. Vancouver plus 1.5 is minus 250. Montreal minus 1.5 is plus 198. A lot of turmoil going on in the Canadiens organization right now with some front office moves. It's uncertainty there, so I'm going to take, believe it or not, the Canucks plus 114 to win in Vancouver on the second of a back-to-back. Last but not least, 9 o'clock, the Pens and the Flames. The Flames are minus 144. The Pens are plus 120. Over under 5.5. Over is minus 105. Under is minus 115. Pens plus 1.5 is minus 215. Flames minus 1.5 is plus 172. For this game, I'm going to go... And the Pens have really turned it around. They are, where things stand right now, the second wild card in the East. So, it's been a couple days, and we have a new first place in the Metro, and Washington and the Pens have fought their way back to the wild card in the East. But Calgary just feels like a team that's just dominant at home. So I'm going to go with the Flames in regulation at plus 110 over the Pittsburgh Penguins. Okay, now we move on to college basketball, where we are going to try to go really quick here and recap these games. And we will look ahead to a smaller window for tonight in the sport. We will begin with Wednesday. Akron over Evansville, 69-60. Yale over Milwaukee, 69-56. FIU over North Dakota, 65-56. Long Beach State over Wright State, 85-76. Albany over Eastern Illinois, 64-62. Michigan State over Loyola Chicago, 63-61. Rider over Bucknell, 85-79. Holy Cross over Mount St. Vincent, 95-52. Grambling over Louisiana College, 71-61. Campbell over Maryland Eastern, 66-55. Vermont over App State, 65-63. Southern Utah over Bowling Green, 87-73. Navy over Washington College, 89-40. NJIT over Fairleigh Dickinson, 62-54. New Orleans over Central Arkansas, 90-63. Canisius over Coppin State, 76-75. Fairfield over Stony Brook, 83-78 in overtime. Number 12, Houston over Oregon, 78-49 in Maui. Number 22, UConn over number 19, Auburn, 115-109 in double overtime at Battle for Atlantis. Jacksonville State over Drexel, 74-62. Murray State over James Madison, 74-62. Cal Poly over Idaho, 67-63. Middle over Mercer, 82-58. Loyola Maryland over Elizabethtown, 69-42. Tennessee Martin over Carver College, 103-43. UTSA over Lamar, 79-73. Eastern Michigan over Western Illinois, 72-68. Cornell over St. Francis, PA, 93-80. Presbyterian over VMI, 59-54. Air Force over Denver, 66-65. Northridge over St. Catherine, 72-62. Hofstra over Malloy, 87-49. Fordham over Rice, 84-74. Wisconsin over St. Mary's, 61-55. And Maui. Western Kentucky over Alabama A&M, 88-62. Radford over William & Mary, 67-54. VC over Syracuse, 67-55 in Battle for Atlantis. Utah Valley over Nichols, 74-63. Valparaiso over Tulane, 68-64. Missouri State over George Washington, 72-54. Number 21, Seton Hall over Cal, 62-59. Buffalo over Illinois State, 106-90. Number 20, Michigan over Tarleton, 65-54. Iowa State upsets number 25, Xavier, 82-70. Nevada over Washington, 81-62. Texas State over Latorno, 92-47. Greensboro over NC Wesleyan, 80-61. Gardner-Webb over Columbia International, 90-78. Southern Miss over UNC Wilmington, 80-66. South Florida over Hampton, 58-52. UMass over UMass Lowell, 92-81. Harvard over Colgate, 84-89 in overtime. Florida State over BU, 81-80 in overtime. Monmouth over Princeton, 76-64. Number 6, Baylor over Arizona State, 75-63 in Battle for Atlantis. Louisiana Tech over UL Monroe, 94-74. Oakland over Delaware, 81-73. New Mexico State over New Mexico Highlands, 94-67. Toledo over Coastal, 79-70. East Tennessee State over Kent State, 57-51. Cal State Fullerton over Northern Arizona, 73-56. Oklahoma over Houston Baptist, 57-40. Grand Canyon over Life Pacific, 82-47. SMU over Sam Houston, 75-66. Number 8, Texas over Cal Baptist, 68-44. Number 23, Florida over Ohio State, 71-68. St. Louis over Stephen F. Austin, 79-68. Number 18, BYU over Texas Southern, 81-64. Butler over Chaminade, 84-51 in Maui. UTEP over Florida A&M, 67-53. Vandy over Pitt, 68-52. Minnesota over Jacksonville, 55-44. Number 9, Memphis over Virginia Tech, 69-61. Montana over San Diego, UC San Diego, I should say, 71-61. UNLV over Whittier, 101-45. South Dakota State over George Mason, 80-76. Santa Barbara over Pine Bluff, 86-58. TCU over Pepperdine, 73-64. A&M over Notre Dame, 73-67. In Maui, Fresno over Santa Clara, 59-52. And Wagner Army postponed. Thanksgiving. Battle for Atlantis, Michigan State over number 22 UConn, 64-60. Dayton over Miami, 76-60. South Alabama over San Diego, 68-67. Presbyterian over New Orleans, 68-66. Number 4 Kansas over North Texas, 71-59. Number 19 Auburn over Loyola Chicago, 62-53 in Battle for Atlantis. Hawaii over UIC, 88-84 or 88-80. VMI over Central Arkansas, 73-67. Number 6 Baylor over VCU, 69-61 Battle for Atlantis. Iona upsets number 10 Alabama, 72-68. Southern Miss over UC San Diego, 56-55. UAB over New Mexico, 86-73. Maryland over Richmond, 86-80. Syracuse over Arizona State, 92-84 Battle for Atlantis. Belmont over Drake, 74-69. Number 24 USC over St. Joe's, 70-55. San Fran over Towson, 71-61. Louisville over Mississippi State, 72-58. And San Diego State over Georgetown, 73-56. UNC Wilmington, Montana, canceled. Friday. Number 6 Baylor over Michigan State, 75-58 in Battle for Atlantis. Miami over North Texas, 69-63. McNeese over St. Francis, Brooklyn, 71-59. Georgia Tech over Georgia Southern, 61-59. Southeast Missouri State over Incarnate Word, 79-76. Dayton upsets number 4 Kansas, 74-73 on that crazy buzzer beater by Mustafa Amzil. Number 22 UConn over VCU, 70-63 in overtime in Battle for Atlantis. Number 3 Purdue over Omaha, 97-40. Bryan over Brown, 65-59. Clemson over Charleston Southern, 91-59. BU over Columbia, 73-60. New Orleans over VMI, 79-71. Sanford over NC A&T, 77-75. Number 15 Tennessee over Tennessee Tech, 80-69. Austin Peay over Howard, 69-67. Montana State over Portland, 69-66. San Diego over UIC, 64-52. Ohio over Concordia, Michigan, 88-68. Old Dominion over Longwood, 62-61. Ole Miss over Mississippi Valley State, 73-58. Presbyterian over Central Arkansas, 75-66. Or Oklahoma State over Oral Roberts, 78-77 in overtime. Number 10 Alabama over Drake, 80-71 in ESPN events. Number 19 Auburn over Syracuse, 89-68 in Battle for Atlantis. Purdue Fort Wayne over Southeast Louisiana, 74-66. UC Riverside over Florida A&M, 60-49. DePaul over Northern Kentucky, 77-68. South Alabama over Hawaii, 72-69. Belmont over Iona, 72-65 in ESPN Events Invitational. Number 10 Kentucky over North Florida, 86-52. Number 25 Xavier over Virginia Tech, 59-58. Loyola Chicago over Arizona State, 77-59 in Battle for Atlantis. West Virginia over Eastern Kentucky, 80-77. Iowa over Portland State, 85-51. LSU over Penn State, 68-63 in overtime in Emerald Coast Classic. Virginia over Lehigh, 61-43. Florida Gulf Coast over Western Michigan, 77-67. Number 14 Illinois over Texas Rio Grande, 94-85. Morgan State over Arkansas State, 75-51. Southern Illinois over Alcorn State, 62-59. Tulsa over Little Rock, 77-73. Iowa State over number 9 Memphis, 78-59 in NIT season tip-off. Cal State Bakersfield over Boise State, 46-39. St. Joe's over Georgetown, 77-74. Towson over New Mexico, 73-58. Wyoming over Hastings, 108-59. Wichita over Missouri, 61-55. Montana over Southern Miss, 74-62. Wake over Oregon State, 80-77 in overtime in Emerald Coast Classic. Pacific over Arkansas Pine Bluff, 74-50. Number 5 Duke over number 1 Gonzaga, 84-81. Number 24 USC over San Diego State, 58-43. And San Francisco over UAB, 63-61. UC San Diego and UNC Wilmington canceled. I think there's COVID issues with UNC Wilmington. Saturday, Louisville over Maryland, 63-55. NCAT over St. Francis Brooklyn, 73-67. Jackson State over Louisiana, 75-70. Providence over St. Peter's, 85-71. Mississippi State over Richmond, 82-71 in overtime. Montana State over Incarnate Word, 83-64. Western Kentucky over Tennessee Martin, 81-66. UMass Lowell over Fisher College, 101-38. East Carolina over Coppin State, 70-68. Jacksonville State over Milan, 93-81. Army over Marist, 65-61. Ball State over Indiana State, 97-75. Sanford over McNeese, 83-75. Northern Iowa, number 16, St. Bonaventure, 90-80. Mercer over Milligan, 88-49. High Point over Chowan, 90-60. Gardner-Webb over Western Carolina, 87-59. Navy over Mount St. Mary, 67-40. LIU over Delaware State, 99-65. Colorado State over Northern Colorado, 88-79. Hofstra over Detroit, 98-84. Nebraska over South Dakota, 83-70. Oklahoma over UCF, 65-62. Davidson over Robert Morris, 88-70. NC State over Louisiana Tech, 90-81. UMBC over Pitt, 87-77. UMass over Rutgers, 85-83. That was a buzzer beater shot by Noah Fernandez of UMass. Monmouth over Cincinnati, 61-59. Nichols over Southwest Christian, 87-58. Cleveland State over Penn State Barron, 89-47. Portland over Southeast Missouri State, 74-68. Western Illinois over Miami of Ohio, 79-67. NC Central over Apprentice, 96-56. Middle Tennessee State over Bryan, 96-48. Campbell over Stetson, 60-58. A&M Corpus Christi over St. Mary's, 88-73. Bradley over Maine, 71-39. William & Mary over Mary Baldwin, 87-50. Penn State over Oregon State, 60-45. An Emerald Coast Classic. East Tennessee State over Lees McRae, 92-74. Furman over SC Upstate, 87-77. Air Force over Idaho State, 59-48. Charleston over Chattanooga, 68-66. Rhode Island over Georgia State, 94-59. Texas Tech over Lamar, 89-57. St. John's over NJIT, 77-68 in overtime. Western Michigan over Purdue Fort Wayne, 93-85 in overtime. Number 2 UCLA over UNLV, 73-51. UNC Greensboro over Vermont, 51-54. Harvard over Northeastern, 77-57. New Hampshire over Holy Cross, 70-55. Liberty over Maryland Eastern, 73-61. Utah Valley over Denver, 77-68 in overtime. Creighton over SIU Edwardsville, 70-65. Grand Canyon over Pepperdine, 59-56. Jacksonville over Coastal Georgia, 83-54. Temple over Delaware, 75-74. Florida Gulf Coast over Southeast Louisiana, 90-71. LSU over Wake, 75-61. Morehead State over Kansas City, 70-62. Valpo over Trinity, 106-69. Green Bay over Wisconsin, 77-48. Indiana over Marshall, 90-79. Albion Christian over McMurray, 89-54. Number 17, Arizona over Sacramento State, 105-59. Eastern Washington over Washington State, 76-71. UC Irvine over Santa Clara, 69-64. North Dakota State over Idaho, 90-73. Marquette over Northern Illinois, 80-66. Utah State over Texas Arlington, 80-61. Illinois State over Purdue Northwestern, 81-71. Weber State over Dixie State, 87-70. Number 18, BYU over Utah, 75-64. Winthrop over Washington, 82-74. Seattle over St. Thomas, Minnesota, 81-64. Cal Baptist over San Diego Christian, 85-38. Loyola Maryland over Prairie View, 83-80. And Sunday, North Texas over Drake, 57-54. Number 21, Seton Hall over Bethune-Cookman, 84-70. Number 23, Florida over Troy, 84-45. FIU over North Florida, 84-69. Number 4, Kansas over Iona, 96-83. BU over Merrimack, 61-60. Montana State over Southeast Missouri State, 75-68. Fordham over Connecticut, 89-85 in double overtime. Stony Brook over Yale, 85-81. I mixed those two together. Western Michigan over Southeast Louisiana, 81-77 in overtime. Citadel over SC State, 91-79 in overtime. It's a lot of overtime. Alcorn State over Milwaukee, 61-57. Evansville over Eastern Illinois, 70-54. James Madison over FAU, 69-65. Duquesne over American, 88-79. Binghamton over Hatwick, 110-41. Loyola Maryland over Fairfield, 75-70. South Carolina over Rider, 65-58. Bucknell over Siena, 65-56 in overtime. DePaul over Eastern Michigan, 101-63. Bowling Green over Chicago State, 75-57. Bellarmine over Franklin, 75-37. Southern over Tennessee State, 82-80. SMU over UL Monroe, 74-67. Portland over Incarnate Word, 77-68. Number 13, Arkansas over Penn, 76-60. Dayton over Belmont, 63-61. Arkansas State over UMKC, 66-55. Fairleigh Dickinson over Princeton, 89-79. Dartmouth over Bryant, 63-61 in overtime. Wofford over Georgia, 68-65. Stephen F. Austin over Northwestern State, 72-68. Kennesaw State over Charleston Southern, 89-52. Brown over Quinnipiac, 72-61. North Alabama over Alabama State, 81-69. UNC Asheville over St. Andrews, 106-36. Radford over Eastern Kentucky, 88-75. Lipscomb over Kentucky Christian, 86-67. Academy of Art upsets UC Davis, 79-60. That's a bad loss for UC Davis. Kansas State over North Dakota for 84-42. Number 7, Villanova over LaSalle, 72-46. Cal State Northridge over San Diego, 56-52. Florida Gulf Coast over Purdue Fort Wayne, 85-78. Number 10, Alabama over Miami, 96-64 in the Events Invitational. St. Francis, PA over Lehigh, 79-68. Colorado over Stanford, 80-76. Norfolk State over Hampton, 70-61. Cal over Fresno, 65-57. And Grambling over Morgan State, 74-59. All right. Now we look ahead to tonight, a much smaller window. 6 o'clock ESPNU, you have Norfolk State and Grambling from Footprint Center in Phoenix. My projection is Norfolk State by 13. Norfolk State's off to a really good start this season. My projection for this game, like I said, is Norfolk 13, is Norfolk 5.5, total 139.5. I'm laying it with Norfolk. 6:30, Hartford, App State. My projection is App State 10, and it's 8.5, totals 129.5. I'll take the over. Next up, 7 o'clock, Central Michigan at number 10, Kentucky. My projection is Kentucky by 28.75. And it's 30.5. Total's 148.5. I can't take Central Michigan less than 2 points. I'm going to go with the over instead. Point Park, Buffalo, we can skip. NC Central and Gardner-Webb. My projection for this game is Gardner-Webb by 7.5. And it's 11.5. I'm taking NC Central in the points. Lafayette and Columbia. My projection is Columbia by 2.75. And it's Columbia 1.5. Totals 140.5. I'll take the over. Iona and Virginia. Big Ten ACC Challenge on ESPN2. My projection is Virginia by 7.25. And Iowa, undefeated Iowa, is minus 1.5 on the road. Totals 130.5. I'm taking Virginia plus the 1.5 and plus 105 to win straight up. Iowa's got to prove to me that they're for real. South Florida, BC. My projection is BC by 3.25. And it's 6.5, totals 119.5. I'm taking South Florida in the points. Cornell and Canisius. My projection is Cornell by 14.75. And it's Canisius by 2.5. I'm taking Cornell plus the 2.5. And plus the money line. What is that? Plus 116. I think the wrong team is favored in this game. Niagara and Colgate. My projection for this game is Colgate by 19.75, and it's 11.5. I laid 11.5 with Colgate. The next couple we're going to skip. Northwest Ohio, Toledo, 8 o'clock, Paul Quinn, Missouri, A&M Commerce, South Alabama, Campbellsville, Murray State, St. Mary's, UTSA. And now we get back to our normal duties, Austin P and TCU. My projection for this game is TCU by 8.5. And it is 17.5. Total is 136.5. I'm taking Austin P plus the points. Mississippi Valley State and Vandy. My projection is Vandy by 34. This game's on the SEC Network. X is on SECN Plus. And it's 37.5. I'm taking Valley State plus the points. Tulsa and Oral Roberts. My projection is Tulsa by 1/4. Oral Roberts is a 1.5 point favorite. I'm taking Tulsa plus 1.5 and minus 108. on the money line. Next two, we can skip Southwest Adventurous and Houston Baptist and Shriner and Abilene Christian. 8:30, you have Sam Houston at number 8, Texas. My projection for this game is Texas by 23.25. And it's 21.5, totals 129. I'll take the over. Morgan State and Hampton from Footprint Center in Phoenix on ESPNU. I project this as a pick'em. And it is Morgan State by 3.5. I'm taking Hampton plus the 3.5. And I'm going to go with them outright is the question because it's on the neutral. You know what? Why not? We'll go Hampton to win on the money line. We'll take them outright here. Arkansas Baptist and Arkansas Pine Bluff, we can skip. 9 o'clock ESPN2 Big Ten ACC Challenge. Notre Dame at number 14, Illinois. My projection is Illinois by 10.25, and it is 4.5. I'm laying the 4.5 at Illinois. I think that this is where Illinois gets going. Carroll College and Utah State, we can skip. Texas Arlington and Santa Barbara, my projection is Santa Barbara by 18.25, and it's 12.5. I'll lay the 12.5 at Santa Barbara. 10 o'clock, Tarleton and number 1 Gonzaga. My projection is Gonzaga by 33.25. They're not going to be number 1 for much longer, obviously, with the poll coming out today and them losing to Duke. Duke's probably going to be number 1 as they should be because they knocked off number 1. Gonzaga is favored by 31.5. Total is 137.5. I'll take the over. Montana, Oregon on the Pac-12 Network. My projection is Oregon by 15.25, and it is 13. I'm going to lay the 13 with Oregon. Wyoming and Cal State Fullerton. My projection is Fullerton by 1, and it's Wyoming by 4.5. I'm taking Fullerton plus 4.5 and plus 176 on the money line. Grand Canyon and Loyola Marymount. My projection for this game is Marymount by 5.5. And it's 3.5. I'm going to lay the 3.5 at Marymount. And last but not least, UC Riverside and St. Mary's. My projection is St. Mary's by 12.75. And it is 9.5. And I'm going to lay the 9.5 with St. Mary's. Now I'm going to go over the weekend's results in the Major League Soccer playoffs. I'm glad I'm just breezing through this because I have a lot of news and notes to get to in college football and Major League Baseball in particular. So, Major League Soccer playoff results. So, Thanksgiving, Portland over Colorado 1-0 as they advance. And Sunday, Salt Lake over Kansas City 2-1, and then Philadelphia over Nashville for the win. They advanced 2-0 on penalties, but it was 1-1 in regulation. That was a great game and a big win for the Philadelphia Union. So we are going to have one more playoff game on Tuesday between New England and NYCFC, which we will preview and predict on the podcast. It is the last of the Eastern Conference semifinals, so the winner of that game would take on Philadelphia, but I don't know when that game will be played. All right, now we'll move on to news and notes. A lot of stuff to get into. The biggest news that happened over the weekend is that Lincoln Riley is leaving Oklahoma for the University of Southern California. So, that's a monster hire. A big loss for Oklahoma, obviously. Now they have to go coach hunting. Bob Stoops will be the intern coach for the game, which is their bowl game. They're not going to be in the Big 12 championship game because they lost. But what a hire for USC. I don't think anybody saw this coming. Everyone and their brother was like, it's either going to be James Franklin or somebody of that nature. They missed out on James Franklin. He stayed at Penn State. Good for Penn State. Mel Tucker, still at Michigan State for the time being. although he just got handsomely paid. But Lincoln Riley is now your new head coach at USC. This is a landmark hire for the program. This is about as a landmark as a hire in college football I can remember in a while. I know Jim Harbaugh was a sexy hire for Michigan, but now that looks like a landmark hire with their big upset over Ohio State finally. And it took a while, but Harbaugh finally has Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. In a year where nobody expected it, by the way. No one, in a year Michigan had low expectations. That's when Harbaugh's at his best. Lincoln Riley is just a consistently good football coach. And everyone and their brother thought he was going to be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, including yours truly. But, no, here he is at USC. Now I regret doing the college football coaches 3 years from now game from the summertime. I wanted to do it, but I just didn't have the time to do it from the summertime. Maybe we'll do it once all the vacancies are filled from the winter, and we can project along with some of these other schools and whatnot. But what a monster hire for USC. And they're going to be back to being a contender in the Pac-12 before we know it. The Pac-12, I think, is in a good spot with this hire. It looks like that Chip Kelly finally has UCLA in the right direction. You have Oregon, that's a contender year in and year out under Mario Cristobal. You have Kyle Whittingham at Utah, having that team relevant. Herm Edwards has Arizona State relevant. So that is a really good conference right now. But the sad part about this conference is that Stanford's been down the last couple of years. If only David Shaw can get Stanford turned back around. But yeah, good for USC. And filling Florida's vacancy is Bill Napier of Louisiana Lafayette. That is a big loss for Louisiana. So he replaces Dan Mullen, and now Louisiana's going to be coach searching. So they had a good run in Sun Belt the last couple of years. Napier's deserving of a new position. But we'll see how he does in Florida in the SEC. It's a good hire. This kind of reminds me of some of the other hires like this that we've had in the past, where a small school coach goes to a bigger school and blows it out of the water. Like you're seeing it with Kansas State with Chris Spielman, who came over from FCS North Dakota State. And he's had some success. And then the other big hire from the weekend is that Sonny Dykes leaves SMU for TCU. I think that's a nice hire. And it's good to see Sonny Dykes back in the Power 5. After he loses his job with Cal, goes to a smaller school, rebuilds his brand, and now he's back in the Power 5. So that's good for Sonny Dykes. And back to the Riley stuff. All of Oklahoma's staff are USC bound. So Alex Grinch is going with Lincoln Riley, the Southern Cal. And Oklahoma fans are not happy. They're traitor banners at Oklahoma Stadium. And the funny thing is that I was thinking to myself the other day, they asked him if he was going to be the next head coach at LSU, and he goes, no, I'm not going to be the next head coach at LSU. Not even 24 hours later, he's the next head coach at USC. So, you knew something was fishy with his response with that. And little did we know it's going to be USC. And the LSU vacancy still has to be filled. That's the other big domino that has to fall. Florida's filled. But now the waiting game's on LSU. And let's see if they get a monster name. And in terms of Riley replacements, Cliff Kingsbury is a possible target according to Adam Schefter. But they would have to wait for that one till the Cardinals season's over. But I don't think it's going to be Cliff Kingsbury there. That would just be ridiculous. I think they could do better than Cliff Kingsbury, honestly. And I think Cliff Kingsbury's done a great job with the Cardinals this year. But they can get a better college coach than Cliff Kingsbury, is what I kind of mean by that. Although Cliff just didn't have the best talent at Texas Tech, but now he's having his best NFL coaching season with the Cardinals by a mile. He has to be the coach of the year in the NFL. But we don't talk about the AP poll anymore because we do by the college football playoff rankings. Major League Baseball has dominated the weekend as well. Some big free agent signings. The Rangers signed Marcus Semien to a monster 7-year, I believe it's $150 million contract. I think that is ridiculous. Marcus Semien's a great player. I just can't believe he got paid that much money off of one career year. I think teams are spending money hard right now because of the labor stoppage that is soon to happen with the lockout. So you're going to be seeing a bunch of these big contracts getting thrown out there within the next 24 to 48 hours. And Semien is a really good player, and he improves the Rangers' offense, but that back end of the contract has a chance to be terrible. Like, that could be the Chris Davis contract, potentially, if he regresses. And now there's even reports that they're still in on Corey Seager, so they can have both Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, which would be wild, which would mean that Semien would have to play second base in Texas in order for that to happen. The other big signings at Toronto signed Kevin Gausman, 5 years, $110 million. I think that's a ridiculous contract to off of one big year. I think that that could be a potential bad contract too, off of one career year in the National League. Now he goes to the offensive dominant AL East. I'm not convinced that he's going to be great in the AL East. I don't like any of these signings so far. I think that Corey Seager, Max Scherzer deserve big money. But Scherzer for short-term, Seager and Correa for long-term. But they all haven't signed yet. But yeah, Texas is open to staying in touch with Story, Baez, Seager, and Correa after the Semien signing. So that's crazy. So they have a ton of shortstops to choose from. And then the Marlins made some moves yesterday. Avisail Garcia, 4 years, $53 million. I don't like that contract for him. And then they extend Sandy Alcantara, 5 years, $56 million, which I really, really like. And another free agent signing by the Rangers, John Gray, 4-year deal. I hate that deal. John Gray, that is probably like the worst free agent signing that I could remember in terms of fit in a while. John Gray would have been a great fit on the Minnesota Twins. He would have been a great fit on the Seattle Mariners. I hate that Texas fit for him, but I could be wrong. He's a home run prone pitcher. I just really don't like that signing. And now the hot rumor is that the Mets are closing in on Max Scherzer, as New York is finalizing a multi-year deal with Max Scherzer, which is insane. If the Mets were to sign Max Scherzer, that puts him right back in the conversation in the National League East. Cole used to go with Jacob deGrom. Signs him away from the Dodgers and prevents him from going back to the Nationals. And this would be a huge deal if they're able to pull this off. But I don't want to believe that it's a done deal because it's the Mets. We've seen the Mets make mistakes all the time. And then they signed Starling Marte the other day. That's a good contract. I think that is a great deal for the Mets. Because they badly needed a center field upgrade, and they got one with Marte. That's one of the signings that I liked. Rays signed Corey Kluber, 1-year deal. I love that signing for the Rays. Kluber threw a no-hitter for the Yankees last year, but injuries sort of held him back. I think he's going to be great for Tampa Bay. He's going to be better than Michael Wacha was last year for them. We have 4 years, $78 million for Marte. And then Marcus Stroman, what an idiot he is. He says the Mets don't want me as he rips the Mets after having a 3.02 ERA season and says the front office would rather have other options on the market. Stroman's right, but he has no business to bitch about it on Twitter like he always does. That's why teams don't want him. he's probably overrated, if anything. And the Mets, I think, are right not to re-sign him. And I think Stroman is a good pitcher, but he's not even worth what Kevin Gausman got. Maybe he is. Maybe that's his max. Oh, here's a signing I don't like. Michael Wacha, the Boston, 1-year deal. I do not like that signing. I hate that fit for him, too. And here's a signing I like for the Mets. 2 years, $25 million for Eduardo Escobar. And then they signed Mark Hanna to a 1-year deal. I like that signing, too. He can hit home runs. A good trade by the Seattle Mariners. They acquire Adam Frazier from Pittsburgh for reliever Ray Kerr and outfielder Corey Rozier. I think that's a great deal for Seattle, getting a good utility player in Adam Frazier. You know the Mariners will be going big and bold this offseason with coming darn close to making the playoffs last year, and so is Toronto. And then the Mariners are eyeing Chris Bryant, but he's not expected to sign before December 1st. Javier Baez in talks with the Tigers in the last several days. That would be a good signing for Detroit. The Angels are targeting Luis Castillo in trade, but are far apart because of high asking price. So that's it for baseball. If we have breaking news in any of the sports, I'll break it on the podcast, obviously. So Kenneth Walker, the star running back for Michigan State, might have the draft on his mind as he was being asked about playing final game in East Lansing. I'm not sure right now. NFL teams were interested in Mel Tucker as Tucker signed that big extension to remain with Michigan State. That would have been wild if he went to the NFL. The Eagles encouraged by Jalen Hurts as his strong quarterback play has the team less likely to pursue veteran options at the position. I don't know about after yesterday, though, only scoring 7 points against a bad Giants team. That's just pathetic of a performance for the Eagles. And predictable, too. I called that on the podcast, by the way. And that was more about the Eagles and less about the Giants. The Giants played terrible in that game and still found the way to win. But they won because of their defense and because the Eagles stink. Sad news. Virgil Abloh dies of cancer at the age of 41. That's really sad. Thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Enes Kanter is changing his name and will become a U.S. citizen today. That is great. Good for Kanter. Isaiah Stewart with the scuffle. I didn't feel like it was an accident. I'm not going to let that define who I am. Robert Covington threw a mask at a referee. $15,000 fine after being ejected for throwing his mask. LeBron got fined for his celebration after making that, as the league called, an obscene gesture during an overtime win at the Pacers. He was fined $15,000. Embiid says COVID hit him hard, and that really is sad. I'm glad that he's back and okay and playing for the Sixers. Twins re-signed Byron Buxton to a 7-year extension. That's a big-time extension for Byron Buxton. Back to this Oklahoma domino with USC. Oklahoma had the 5th decommit in 24 hours as 4-star linebacker Kobe McKenzie is now their 5th decommitment since Riley announced his move to USC. You know you're going to have a ton of transfers in Oklahoma. That program is in a rough spot as they're going to be heading over to the SEC in a couple of years. I mean, I know Texas had a bad year this year, but you would think that they're going to bounce back, and hopefully Oklahoma hires somebody good. A couple big hockey names on waivers. Evander, Kane, and Matt Murray. As they were both placed on waivers, we'll see who could potentially pick them up. I know Murray cleared. I don't know if Kane cleared or not. So the Canadians had a front office cleanup yesterday. They cleaned house. Mark Bergevin and others after the 6-15 start. So that's obviously them thinking that the Stanley Cup final appearance was a fluke and some luck got them there. So they make all these changes and then they make all these big moves. So now I wonder what the new GM is going to come in and do. I wonder if they're going to trade some veterans away and then start to build around Nick Suzuki and some of the young guys there. So that's going to be interesting to follow. We talked about the Islanders' postponement in the hockey segment due to COVID-19 protocols until at least tomorrow. NBA injury news. Evan Mobley came back Saturday. Jalen Green to miss a week with a hamstring injury. Zion cleared the practice. That's big news for the Pelicans. Now the question is, when does he return? Ja Morant out a couple of weeks due to a knee sprain. That is a big loss for the Grizzlies. Goran Dragic stepping away from the team due to personal reasons. The John Wall stuff is getting weird. John Wall wants to play, and he met with Rafael Stone and Stephen Silas to discuss his return. And he posted the video on Instagram, #FreeMe. And then he calls out a report, as a reporter made a claim that his situation in Houston about it, and then Wall said that it was a lie. And then a free agent pickup in season, the Bucks signed DeMarcus Cousins to a 1-year deal. I think that's a good risk for Milwaukee, signing Cousins to come off the bench and could potentially get them some points and rebounds. NFL injury stuff from the weekend and whatnot. Trey White torn ACL out for the year for the Bills. That's a brutal loss for the Bills on defense as their defense gets worse there. Darren Waller avoids a serious injury against the Cowboys after injuring his knee. A.J. Brown on injury reserve for Tennessee. Dalvin Cook dislocated his shoulder in the team's defeat of the San Francisco 49ers. Rams quarterback Matt Stafford's health is an issue as he's dealing with arm and elbow pain along with a chronic back issue. And they still put up 25 points yesterday. So I wonder if they're going to sit him in a couple of games against weaker opponents. Broncos activate Bradley Chubb for that Chargers game. That was he had an impact in that game as Denver beat the Chargers. The Browns feared that Jack Conklin may have torn his patella in his knee. So that would be a huge loss for the Browns on their offensive line. Their offensive line looked weak yesterday. And then without Conklin, it would be really bad. And some non-sports news here. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey to resign. That's according to CNBC. So now Twitter has to find a new CEO. All right, that's it for news and notes. And now move on to best bet of the day, brought to you by FanDuel. There's 2 games that stood out to me, but the question is, where do I go? And, breaking college football news right now. Temple fires Rod Carey. That doesn't surprise me. 12-20 in 3 years. We'll see who they can potentially get there. It's probably going to be somebody that's a highly talented assistant or a good coach from, like, the Sun Belt or something like that. Because that's not a bad job in the American Athletic Conference. And so I have 2 potential ways for best bet. And where I'm going to go I'm going to lay the 4.5 with Illinois against Notre Dame. I just chose to go with the smaller number. It was either that or Clippers against the Pelicans. So I'm going to go 1 unit on Illinois minus the 4.5 at home against Notre Dame in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. All right, so that's it for today's show. I'll be back tomorrow recapping everything from college basketball, NBA, and NHL, and the NFL. And we'll look ahead to tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to do Hit or Miss 2020 NBA Draft Edition. And anybody or anything else, sports or pop culture related, and news and notes I'll have for you as well. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.